Welcome back with First Team Fantasy, guys. You have me, Schiff, here, and Derek.
Yes, sir.
And we are going to start getting right into the injury report because we have a whole lot this week. I'm going to start with the ones from the Jacksonville Jaguars heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints Thursday night. So far, Zay Jones, questionable yet again with the knee. He was a non-participant in Tuesday's practice. Trevor Lawrence, also with the knee injury, was limited in Tuesday's practice. The Jags remain optimistic he'll be able to play in Thursday's game. So you're going to have to pay attention to that one. I know a lot of people have and are planning on starting Trevor Lawrence. Also from the same game, Chris Olave with a toe injury was limited in Tuesday's practice. He's probably going to play.
Mm-hmm.
I would not count on him sitting out. Juwan Johnson, on the other hand, with the calf, did not take part in Tuesday's practice, and he has been out a couple weeks. So we don't really count on the Saints tight ends anyways.
Yeah.
On a positive note, Jamal Williams was designated yesterday to return from the IR. So I'm not sure exactly when he will be back, but it will be soon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all for that game. Moving on to the Raiders and the Bears. For the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo, he underwent more tests on Monday, and we'll see the severity of his back injury. I'm not sure if he'll play. If he's not able to go, we saw Brian Hoyer able to step in and, carry them to the win. So I'm not too worried about the receivers or anything, especially given they're going up against Chicago.
Yeah.
For the Bears, Roschon and Travis Homer are both questionable. I believe Roschon is going to be playing, and if he does play, we've seen what, opposing running backs have done to the Raiders defense. He should be a decent start. Travis Homer, yet again, questionable. Justin Fields is doubtful for the game. I don't think he will be playing, so that really should have a negative mark on pretty much the whole entire Chicago team.
Yeah.
Equanimous St. Brown is on injured reserve, as well as Khalil Herbert. And then the Browns and Colts, Deshaun Watson is still questionable, still cleared to play. He himself said it's a day-to-day thing. He's unsure when he'll be able to go. So still playing the waiting game with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cedric Tillman, their rookie wide receiver, is questionable. Not that he has had much impact so far this year anyways. For the Colts, Kylan Granson, their tight end, is questionable with a concussion, and he's in the 5-step protocol apparently. With that, I'm not so sure that we'll be seeing him on Sunday. Definitely something to monitor. On the other hand, Anthony Richardson was placed on IR. Jim Irsay said he will very likely be done for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So we are looking at a Gardner Minshew rest of the season quarterback one for the Colts. Also for the Colts, Evan Hull, their running back, was placed on IR, and he is expected to miss the rest of the season. With the emergence of Zach Moss and the return of Jonathan Taylor, that didn't really have much significance anyways. For the Patriots and Bills, Damian Harris had a concussion and a sprained neck in the game versus the Giants. He's going to be questionable. If he's not able to go, it will just be James Cook and Latavius Murray, and that should result in more production for, unfortunately, Latavius Murray.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid is still questionable and in the concussion protocol, given that he already missed a week. I have faith he will be back, but we haven't seen too much production out of the Bills tight ends anyways. Josh Allen is questionable with the shoulder, considered day-to-day. Usually when we hear the day-to-day, a lot more times than not, it means they will be missing a week. But this is Josh Allen we're talking about. He's played through a UCL sprain before, so he's one of the tougher quarterbacks in the league. I would like to think he'll be playing, but definitely something you're going to have to monitor, given he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
On the Patriots side of the ball, Demario Douglas in the concussion protocol, he's still questionable. Same with Juju Smith. And that's really all for the Patriots. Not that you're really considering starting either one of them anyways. Daniel Jones for the Giants is still questionable. He says that his neck injury feels a lot better and that he's trying to be ready by week 7 to play against Washington. If he's able to go, We've seen this Washington defense get absolutely shredded by multiple lower tier quarterbacks. I think Daniel Jones would be a decent play if he is able to go. The Atlanta Falcons and Buccaneers. Falcons have no injuries to report, thankfully for any Falcons owners. And on the Buccaneers side of the ball, Baker Mayfield is questionable with a left non-throwing hand contusion. He will obviously be able to play since it's his non-throwing hand. I am not too excited about the Buccaneers offense in this game anyways. The Falcons defense has been fairly good. The Lions at the Ravens. James Mitchell, a tight end on the Lions, is questionable. David Montgomery, more importantly, is questionable. And Dan Campbell said on Monday that Montgomery is expected to miss some time. So when this tag will change from questionable to out, I'm not sure, which means until that point, you can't put him on your IR. So you're sitting there. I'm kind of struggling, but he is not going to be playing this week. I can almost guarantee that. Jahmyr Gibbs, on the other hand, is still questionable with the hamstring. Dan Campbell said he's trending towards playing. That's more confident than I've been the last couple weeks. Obviously, it's more positive news than we have heard. Even then, it's going to be a very difficult matchup against a tough Ravens run defense, so I'm not necessarily jumping to start Jahmyr Gibbs. Zonovan Knight, also apparently on the Lions, was placed on injured reserve. So if Jahmyr Gibbs isn't able to go, it's going to be all Craig Reynolds. Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens, surprisingly, have no injuries to report on the offensive side of the ball. That's a godsend. Wow. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Pat Freiermuth is still questionable with the hamstring. Said that Mike Tomlin said he expected Freiermuth to practice today. We'll see if that ended up happening. If he's able to practice, I figure he'll probably be able to play. And then Deontay Johnson has returned from the IR. He plans to be playing this week against the Rams. The Rams are very good against wide receivers. Not super excited about starting him this week. Ronnie Rivers on the Rams was placed on IR, and he's expected to be sidelined for 4 to 5 weeks. Kyron Williams is definitely going to miss Sunday's game with a sprained ankle. We will see beyond that. As of right now, Williams still has a questionable tag, so like Montgomery, you are not able to move him into your IR yet. Hopefully they change that soon and give owners of both of those players a little bit more freedom. The Cardinals at the Seahawks. Not really anything worth mentioning here for Cardinals. And the Seahawks, apparently DK's okay. So that's good to see. Probably see him exit midway through the game in that one as well. For the Packers, go figure, Aaron Jones is still questionable. And the Broncos have no injuries to report. So you like to see that. Chargers have no injuries, neither do the Chiefs. The Dolphins running back Chris Brooks is week to week. Jeff Wilson was not activated off of the injured reserve yet. So, and that was as of Saturday. We'll see through the week how that goes. If he's unable to go, as we saw previously, it will be Mr. Salvon.
Yeah.
We'll refrain from saying his last name. The Eagles have no injuries to report. Quez Watkins is on IR. We already knew that, and they signed Julio Jones because of that. And on to probably the two most important ones. Christian McCaffrey is questionable.
And Debo.
And Debo. McCaffrey isn't considered to be dealing with a long-term injury and could be available for Monday's game. Debo is day-to-day. I would not count on both of them missing, but we saw, what was that, week 3 or 4, an injured Debo go out there and pretty much just run around as a decoy. If he does play, I would I'd put my money on Debo kind of running the same type. I mean, just having him out there running around as a decoy, creating more openings for Ayuk and Kittle. That's probably what we're going to see if Debo does play. And if he doesn't, obviously, it's just going to be a whole lot of Ayuk and Kittle. Christian McCaffrey, if he's unable to go, like we've talked about, we don't know if it's going to be Jordan Mason or Eli Mitchell. Just from what we've seen in the past from Eli Mitchell, and if you kind of look at what happened with the Keontae Ingram, Amari DiMercado thing, I believe it'll be kind of similar to that. They have the guy that they've liked for a while, and he might step right back into his role. And the Vikings, we know about Justin Jefferson, and that's really all that they have in the way of injuries. And that long-winded injury report is now over. So as we get more updates throughout the week, also Kyler Murray was designated to return from the PUP list this week. So if you had Kyler Murray stashed on your IR, better days might be coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all we have for the injury report. So we will get right into our starts and sits of the week. Derek, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. Quarterbacks, a couple starts. I got Sam Howell against the Giants. I know it's on the road. I saw what the Giants just did to the Bills. We touched on it. Sam Howell has one game below 16 fantasy points. I like Sam Howell. They've been able to pass the ball consistently, no matter who the opponent is. So, I mean, I like his start. And then my other start being Jordan Love. He had a very abysmal week against the Raiders. But other than that, he's put up 23, 20, 25, and 19. And he is going to play the Broncos, who just, it feels like they are just tanking for whatever reason. That defense is just horrid. So I like the Jordan Love start. Someone I'm avoiding is Kirk Cousins against the Niners. We saw how that Vikings offense looked without Justin Jefferson, and now you are playing.
That was against the Bears.
That was against the Bears, and now you are playing. You're playing the best defense in the NFL, if not top 2, top 3. I mean,
and they just got beat, so they're gonna be coming out, with some fire. So yeah, I 100% agree there.
Yeah, but that's all I had for my quarterbacks.
All right, I'll get into mine. And I know that I brought him up during the waiver episode, and I said, although he's had nice matchups and really failed to do much with them, I do like Geno Smith, the match. I mean, if he's going to get it done, this is the week to do it. We saw Joe Burrow kind of have his revival against the Cardinals. I think you have a healthy DK, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. Everybody on that Seahawks offense is healthy right now. I think that it should be a good week for Geno. And going into my next guy, Derek Carr, I did also bring up during the waiver wire episode. I mean, I think he's thrown the ball more than 30 times in 4 out of the 6 games. One of them, we know that he played even while dealing with the AC sprain. So obviously he wasn't going to throw that many times there. But last week, I think we saw him get back to the Derek Carr we know, hit that deep pass to Rashid Shaheed down the middle for the touchdown. And while the Jags picked off Gardner Minshew 3 times, I do think Derek Carr is a much better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. I think the receiving talent on the Saints is better, if not equal to that of the Colts. And I believe that Derek Carr will have, maybe not a 20-point week, but as we've seen so far this year, you don't need a 20-point week out of a quarterback to win. You just need him to not give you sub 10.
Yeah.
Which we've seen a lot of.
Yeah.
But and probably my favorite start this week is Brock Purdy going to Minnesota. That matchup has just been great for quarterbacks not named Justin Fields this year. Even if Debo can't play, I still think they'll be able to get it done against a team that is just in a free fall right now. I mean, they got lucky enough to beat the Bears last week against a backup quarterback from a decent part of the game and still only won by 1 score. Game was sealed by an interception, which I just do not think even if Debo's not able to go 100%, I think Kittle and Ayuk and even Eli Mitchell is enough to get it done against the Minnesota Vikings. Moving into my sits, my first one is Trevor Lawrence, and this should be obvious enough. He hasn't really been putting up superb numbers anyways, and right now he's questionable with the knee. The Saints have a very good defense. It's all just a recipe for disaster. If he is able to have a good week, then I will be more surprised than not. Baker Mayfield is my next quarterback. He had a perfect matchup last week against the Detroit Lions and was not able to do too much with it. And yes, it's an injury on his non-throwing hand, but a lot of times that affects your ability to take snaps from under center. They're going to be teeing off a lot because he's in shotgun. I think it's going to be a very tough week for Baker Mayfield and the whole entire Buccaneers offense. And my final one is Jared Goff going into Baltimore.
Yeah.
We have seen this Baltimore defense. Granted, some of the quarterback talent that they've played so far. I mean, week 1, they play CJ Stroud in his first start. Then they get a hobbled Joe Burrow. They don't even get Deshaun Watson. So it's hard to say that, yes, this is a truly elite defense, and they haven't really faced a starting quarterback yet. But, I mean, they're healthy. They are second in the league right now in sacks. Jared Goff is not the most mobile quarterback. I think they'll be getting to him, and it's going to be a tough day for Goff. But that has nothing to do with Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
So you're still full go with them. Goff, I'm just very iffy about. I'd prefer to sit him this week. And then we can get into the running backs.
Yeah, and I don't have too many for the running backs. My main must start in this, if he goes, if Aaron Jones goes, I'm absolutely rolling him in this one. Just the Denver defense, again, has been horrid, along with my Jordan Love start. If Aaron Jones goes, I am full go on Aaron Jones. I think his workload, I mean, we'll see, but, I mean, we've seen the Packers' offense without him stall at times. So with him, I just see, if he can get 15 carries, he can get 4 or 5 through the air. I mean, Aaron Jones, this is a prime week where I can see him getting 15, 20 points with ease. And, I mean, the Packers getting an easy win as well. I absolutely love the Aaron Jones start. And on the other side of the ball, I do not like the Javonte Williams start. Even when he was coming back from injury, gets injured again, and his workload just has not been what we thought it would be as the season progresses, and I think it's going to stay around the same. He's probably going to get 40 to 50% of the snaps, if that. So he's just not getting the volume you would want from a running back that's in your starting lineup. And the Packers are no slouch against the run. I mean, it's just going to be a tough game for the Broncos, especially, I don't know. But
yeah,
the other sit, and I mean, this one's kind of an obvious one at this point, is Najee. Najee has one double-digit week, and he barely got it. It's just Jaylen Warren has a higher upside, and Najee's just, I mean, he just doesn't have the pass-catching ability that we saw in the first year with Big Ben, and I mean, crippled elbow. It was just only reason he was getting all those, and he just has not since. And especially this year, his yards per carry are just declining every single season. He's not getting the targets. His snap percentage is free falling. He's basically in a 50-50 backfield. They play the Rams, who have a solid defense. It's just a matchup I would avoid completely.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because for one of my starts, I have Jaylen Warren.
Yeah.
And that is, while the Rams do have a good defense, DeAndre Swift, and while I'm saying this, I know that the Steelers do not have the Eagles' offensive line. But DeAndre Swift was able to catch 6 passes on 6 targets for 38 yards against the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
That is right up Jaylen Warren's alley. And while, DeAndre Swift was still able to rush for 70 yards and 17 carries, that's about a little higher than 4 yards per carry. So he had a pretty efficient day. I don't know if the efficiency will be the same, given that most of the time we see the Steelers try to run the ball, they get hit behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But I think the pass catching in this one will kind of save Jaylen Warren, and he will get, I think you could count on him getting around like 11, 12 points in this one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah.
My next guy for the starts is Brian Robinson. he will be playing in New York against the Giants. And the Giants defense hasn't been anything spectacular. In fact, the only thing that the Bills were able to actually do successfully,
Was run.
aside from throw the ball to Stephon Diggs, because that's an every week thing, but was run.
Yeah.
They couldn't really do anything else but run the ball, and the Giants couldn't stop it. The Bills basically ran the whole third quarter out just running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going, and as we've seen, when the game script lines up like that for the Commanders, it's a Brian Robinson day. If they're able to establish a lead, if not a lead, keep it close and run the ball, they will run the ball. And I like Brian Robinson obviously way more than Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson's just the pass catcher.
Oh, yeah.
My final one is Jerome Ford, and you could also put Kareem Hunt in this. We've seen, just to bring up one example, in 2 games against the Colts, Travis Etienne has 20 plus fantasy points. The Browns have an amazing offensive line. We just saw Jerome Ford rush for 84 yards against the San Francisco 49ers, and the Colts rush defense does not compare to that of the Niners. Like I said, Kareem Hunt, he's just as good of a start in this one. It's only really a 2-man backfield with that offensive line, and it's not guaranteed Deshaun Watson's going to play. So with PJ Walker, obviously they're going to lean a little bit more rush, especially how good they are at run blocking. Yeah. I think Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt can both eat this week. Moving on to my sits, my first one should be very obvious. It's Alexander Mattison at versus San Francisco. They will be at home. We haven't seen extreme efficiency out of Madison, anything great. He's caught some passes here and there, but overall he's been fairly mediocre. And this is going against a defense that is the top of the line. It's very obvious. While the Browns were able to do some work against them, the Browns defense is good enough that, they were able to cause a lot of 3 and outs for the Niners, some turnovers. So they had their offense on the field more. The Vikings don't have a good defense, and their offensive line is not so great. It's going to be difficult for the Vikings to move the ball at all. I don't think there's going to be very many scoring opportunities, so I don't think he'll get in the end zone. So there's that. And the efficiency is just not going to be there. No. So I'm looking to sit him. Another one that I'm not exactly looking to sit, rather just not too excited to start, is James Cook against New England. We saw Josh Jacobs have some trouble with the efficiency against the Patriots. They still have a fairly stout defense, even missing the guys that they have. The most part for me with James Cook is just their willingness to put Latavius Murray on the field as much as they do. Yeah. If that weren't a factor, then I'd love James Cook every single week. He'd never make this list. But it's the fact that they each played 49% of snaps last week. And as we know, they tend to put in Latavius in goal line situations. That just takes away from James Cook. And if the efficiency is not there this week, which I'm not predicting, but just knowing this Patriots defense, and as often as they played the Bills, these teams know each other. It should be a bit tough sledding for James Cook.
Yeah.
Next is Jahmyr Gibbs at Baltimore. We already know how good Baltimore's rush defense is. Aside from a big 64-yard run that Derrick Henry broke, it would have been an abysmal day. And the guy's still questionable with the hamstring. I don't know if he is to go. I don't know that he's going to get the lion's share of the snaps. I think it might go to Craig Reynolds just due to the fact that Jahmyr's not 100%. And even then, they're going up against a very tough defense. My next one, you're not starting a Ravens running back this week. No. Detroit's run defense has been good, and we can't get any kind of tell on who's going to be the guy in that given week. We know that Gus is going to get volume, but they still put Justice Hill in there in red zone and goal line situations, so you never really know who guy is going to be on that given week. And there's not going to be, I don't think the efficiency is going to be there this week against a very stout Lions run defense.
Yeah.
My final two are Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor against Cleveland. Obviously, this is a stifling run defense. I would prefer not to start any running back against them on any given week. And it's just going, I don't think that there's going to be much production from the Colts offense.
Yeah.
And with that, we can jump right into the wide receivers.
Yeah. And I have two receivers that I really like to match up this week. The first one being Hollywood, Marquise Brown. He has 2 single-digit weeks out of the 6 weeks, but he has eclipsed 10 targets in 4 of his 6 games so far, including 11 this past week. He only caught 4 for 34, but 11 targets. And with James Conner being out, now they're going to go play the Seahawks. And again, I don't imagine their run game being too prominent in this one, so I can assume he's going to see another, 8 to 10 targets on the low end. He's just one of those guys where in the receiving room, he's the clear number one. He's getting crazy amount of targets. They're not projecting him a crazy amount of points, but we've seen the Seahawks be torched, and Josh Dobbs has proven he's capable of getting the ball to Hollywood, and I think he will in this game as well. The other one, Curtis Samuel, we've seen him have very consistent weeks. He's projected 9.1 this week. He has gone over double digits like Hollywood, 4 of 6 games. He doesn't get a crazy amount of targets, but he gets very good targets. He is kind of the gadget guy. We've seen him rush for a touchdown. He's a real good red zone target for the Commanders. And I mean, against the Giants defense that Cat just knocked over stuff. It is what it is.
Okay.
Against the Giants defense that, has proven to give stuff up through the air. I mean, I really like the Curtis Samuel start. He's going to be a co-star for a little bit. For my sits, Courtland Sutton against the Packers. I mean, we saw Courtland Sutton hanging on to his touchdowns for as long as he could, and without them, it's just not great. His targets have fallen the past 3 weeks. He's seen 5 targets, 3, and then 6. It's one of those where if Jair is on Courtland, we saw what he was able to do to Devontae Adams. It's just the Broncos offense, and after how the Packers played against the Raiders, and especially coming off the bye, they're going to be fresh. I definitely think Courtland Sutton's a guy I would sit this week. And the other one is DJ Moore. And I know DJ Moore has been great, but and it seems like he's not, if Justin Fields does not go and it's Tyson Bagent or Trace McSorley, I just don't have much faith at all in that offense as a whole. You could say, as Schiff mentioned, like a Roshan Johnson. He could have a good week on the ground because we haven't been good against the rush. But it's just tough.
I have a funny stat. In December, Tyson Bagent threw 2 interceptions and was sacked 8 times against the Colorado School of Mines.
Yeah, now he's an NFL quarterback.
Now he will be facing the Las Vegas Raiders and X Crosby.
Yeah. So DJ Moore's gone over 10 points every single week since week 1, where he only put up 4.5. This past week, he only put up 10.1. It's just one of those things where without Justin Fields, even with Justin Fields, the Bears offense has been bad. DJ Moore still thrived, but without him, I just see it being a very rough week.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that one. In the same game, for one of my starts, I have Jacoby Myers going up against the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
If Jimmy G is able to go, we've seen how he likes Jacoby Myers. It seems to be his favorite target out there. And even if he doesn't go, we still saw him have success when Brian Hoyer stepped in. I don't think this Chicago defense is anything to worry about whatsoever. I think Jacoby continues to put up solid numbers. Yeah. My next one is Romeo Doubs at Denver. I picked Romeo Doubs because I do believe that Christian Watson will be receiving a lot of attention from Pat Surtain. And given that, the guy who should be open and who we've also seen produce and get a lot of targets in this offense is Romeo Doubs. in their last game, not last week. He wasn't able to do too much with them. But as we know, the Raiders' pass defense has been stout. So I don't think that, just what we've seen out of Denver so far, they had the good game last week against the Chiefs. Whether that just be because it's a divisional matchup and the teams know each other very well, I don't know. But I still really like the Romeo Doubs start in this one. My next one is Tyler Lockett against Arizona. This should be obvious enough. Tyler Lockett is going to be open. It's going to be often. Arizona has not been too good on the defensive side of the ball. While they were able to somehow stifle the Rams offense for the most part of last week, I think it's going to be a big week for Tyler Lockett. I've touched on the fact that, they can't really stop the run. So I think there's going to be a lot of chances in play action just due to the fact that Ken Walker is going to be running all over them. And Tyler Lockett is just always open. I don't know how he does it and how he's done it for so long, but he does. And the matchup this week is beautiful. And my final one is Devontae Smith versus Miami. I mean, we know that he's had his lows. And last week, he could have had a huge week. He had double-digit targets. This week, I don't think that he's going to have a choice. I mean, to keep up with Miami, and this Eagles defense hasn't really been the great Eagles defense that we saw like last year. I think that it's going to be a super pass-heavy game. I think Devontae Smith gets another double-digit target week. I think he goes for a touchdown this week. I think I'm going to call Devontae Smith touchdown this week.
Yeah.
So moving on to my sits, it's tough to say, but Michael Pittman is going up against the number one pass defense in the league. Just given what we saw out of Gardner Minshew last week, given what we saw out of the Niners offense against Cleveland, I think it's going to be extremely tough for them to get any production on the ground or in the air. That defense is super just solid. I'm very worried about Michael Pitt. I mean, he'll still probably get the targets, whether or not Gardner Minshew is able to make them good targets or not. We will see, because they will be pressured a lot, and I'm just not very confident this week. That goes to be said with Josh Downs as well. Just anybody on the Colts offense, I'm downgrading heavily. Jamison Williams is my next one. We saw him with production last week due to the touchdown. This week, he's going up against that Baltimore pass defense that I was talking about. And while I said Jared Goff is going to have a tough time, I think that goes with Josh Reynolds and Jamison Williams. I think the targets are still going to get Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta over the hill. Whether or not they're able to get in the end zone or not, I still think they are going to be the two that are able to get it done on the Lions, and everybody else is going to have kind of a hard day.
Yeah.
Next, I have Gabe Davis against the Patriots. Gabe Davis has never done well against the Patriots.
No. I looked that up
He's
before
never
this
done
too.
well against the Jets.
Yeah.
There are just some teams that Gabe Davis has a bad history against, and this is one of them. I can't say that I'm willing to start him at all this week. If you have to, then we just know you are banking on a touchdown. If you don't get a touchdown, it is going to be another painful week like the last one. And last one should have been good. So that's mostly what concerns me.
Yeah.
My final one is Chris Godwin going up against the Falcons. Like I said, I don't like Baker in this one, so I'm really not going to like the pass catchers either. The Falcons have been fairly good against the pass, and this isn't going to be one of those big, if anything, I think this game is going to be under 30 points scored total. It's going to be a grind fest, and it's going to be nasty. And I'd really prefer no parts of this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got for the receivers. We finish this off with the tight ends.
Yeah. Tight end I really like this week and it's kind of surprising, but I really like George Kittle at Minnesota. Schiff had kind of mentioned it. After we saw how the Vikings played against the Bears, especially offensively, I assume they're not going to be able to do too much against the Niners. And when you have a banged up McCaffrey, you have a banged up Debo. Those are two guys where even if they go, you would think the Niners don't need to overload them to win this game. So I don't think they will. Um, and then when you have an Eli Mitchell, Jordan Mason backfield, and you have Ayuk left, Jawan Jennings, I think this can be a George Kittle week. It's going to be a week that they need to rely on their healthy guys, which is Ayuk, which is Kittle. And I mean, we've seen George Kittle have huge explosion weeks, and I mean Brock Purdy had a very tough week, but we know he's had great success getting it to the tight end. It's just primed to be a good week for George Kittle. So if you have him, and maybe you're thinking about sitting him because of his couple dud weeks, I think this is going to be a week that he pops. On the other side, a sit, I have his Kyle Pitts against Tampa. It's weird because Jonnu's just been more consistent than him, and Kyle Pitts his past 2 weeks has had good weeks, but even this past week against Washington, I mean, he was able to get in the end zone, and it put him up at that 14.3 mark, but he's still getting around like 55-60% of snaps. They're playing Tampa. I'm not completely sold on Desmond Ridder. I don't know what it is. It's just one of those gut feeling things. I just do not think Kyle Pitts himself is going to have too great of a week.
Yeah, I feel that. And I have Jonnu Smith as a start.
See, I like Jonnu more than him this week.
He seems like the safety valve.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's been consistent, and consistency is something that I'd rather not go away from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really as simple as it is for Jonnu. My other one is Michael of the Raiders. Like I talked about it in the waiver wire episode, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but we've seen his usage ramping up every week. And this past week was his best one. He's now going up against the defense that is bottom of the barrel. Yeah. So I think if you got him, you're firing him up.
Yeah.
My sits, I hate to say it, but TJ Hawkinson against San Francisco, he's going up against the best linebacker core in the NFL. I mean, It's tough, but he might make it out on pure volume alone, but I don't see him having too big of a day against a team that just lost their undefeated streak. So my next one is Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah.
This is simply because he's not 100% yet. Mike Tomlin hasn't even said whether or not he's playing. So just given that, I never really like not knowing. And if he is going to go, it's going to be his first week back. I'm just not very comfortable. I mean, if he's out there on the waivers, you want to pick him up and save him for weeks to come. Their bye is gone. So I don't hate that. But I'd prefer not to start him this week. And then my final one is Tyler Higbee against Pittsburgh. I mean, since he got his deal, he's been chilling.
Yeah, when Cooper came back, he just faded to the abyss.
It set everything back to where the Rams have been.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of just what it is. And that's really all for our starts and sits. If you have any questions on guys that you have to start or sit, let us know. But we are about to go into the Thursday night preview.
Mm-hmm. And it's the Jaguars traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. I guess I'll kick it off with the Saints side of the ball. Derek Carr, as Schiff mentioned, I do like his start this week. Yeah, he threw the ball 50 times this past week. He doesn't have an injury designation coming in. It seems like he's going to be fully healthy, and it should be a good week for him passing the ball through the air. I mean, Chris Olave is, his reps. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday due to that toe, but they're proceeding carefully. They expect him to be able to play, and I think he's going to play as well. And then, with his receiving core, I mean, Olave, Michael Thomas, even Rashid Shaheed has been such a good deep threat for Carr and his ability to get the ball downfield. I mean, I like starting Derek Carr. If one of your quarterbacks is on bye and that's what it's looking on the waiver, I like the Derek Carr start. Obviously, we're firing up Alvin Kamara. His volume alone, I mean, he's only sharing with Kendre Miller, who, I mean, he's a rookie. He just hasn't proven himself quite yet. I like starting Chris Olave. I like starting Michael Thomas. If you're in a deeper league and you want to put the flyer on Rashid Shaheed, I mean, he's got a good shot at catching the deep ball. And then, I mean, Taysom Hill got 8 targets this past game, and he'd had 6 through the first 5 weeks. I mean, maybe he catches some passes. By no means am I starting Taysom or Foster Moreau. And
No, God no.
no, and I mean, even it's tough. The Saints defense has had some good weeks. I don't know exactly how I feel. It's just scary because I'm not like completely sold on their defense fantasy wise in this game, and it's a Thursday night game. So it's like, you're going to get your defense out of the way early. But I mean, I don't hate the defensive play this week, but again, it's a Thursday night game. I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel get on the other side of the ball in that regard. So far, the Jaguars have 8 picks and 12 sacks on the year, and the Saints have had a very hard time scoring. They're not even hitting the 20 points per game mark.
Mm-hmm.
So I do honestly like the Jaguars defense as a play. I know that kind of contradicts what I said about, liking the Derek Carr start, but something's got to give. It's going to be one or the other. And Derek Carr could have a good game and get sacked 6 times. So, and then currently, like I said, I don't like playing Trevor Lawrence this week. He's dealing with that knee, and just given that it's on Thursday, I don't like the having to play my quarterback on Thursday with a knee injury. Just no. So I'm looking. If you have him, I'm looking to make a pivot now.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints are only giving up 16 points per game, 96.2 yards on the ground, and 102 air. Just that right there makes me less excited to start Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Because it's like they are not just, a happy go, like you can't pass all over them, you can't run all. I'm even concerned with Travis Etienne. Trevor's his brother.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, obviously he's still an absolute must start given the volume, and he might end up getting into the end zone with this one. He's a very good running back, but he's had games where his efficiency has been fairly poor. It wasn't the best in this last game against the Colts. He was just able to get into the end zone twice. And, just the Saints defense has been very good against the run. They stifled the Texans last week. And the Texans don't have the best offensive line, but still, it's been fairly tough to run against the Saints.
Yeah.
And the guy that I'm most concerned with on the Jaguars offense outside of Trevor Lawrence is Calvin Ridley in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be receiving a lot of attention from Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
It's been tough for Calvin Ridley. I mean, outside of a couple games, he hasn't been what we wanted. I don't think this is the one where that turns around. Like I said, with the Lattimore coverage, that's going to be tough, but I think that opens up the door for Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this really depends on, to me, if Zay Jones plays, because we've seen Zay Jones step into the offense and completely throw everything out of whack. In the games he's played, he scored.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence loves throwing the ball to Zay Jones. So if he does play, I think that kind of puts the Kirk targets in jeopardy, especially given that he didn't receive as many targets last week as I'd hoped. That also kind of goes along with the fact that the Jaguars were never behind in that game, I don't think they were ever behind in that game.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts may have kicked a field goal in the beginning and that was it, but they didn't have to pass the ball like that. So if Zay Jones doesn't play, Christian Kirk is probably going to be the highest scorer on the Jaguars. Evan Ingram, actually, I take that back. I think it'll be Evan Ingram. We saw last week the Saints give up the tight end 2 week to Dalton Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
16.1 points. We know how solid Evan Ingram's been. And if that is the proverbial soft spot in the Saints defense, who better to exploit that than the guy who's just been extremely consistent all year.
Yeah.
I think it is, Evan Ingram could very well be the tight end one at the end of this week. Oh, well, no, Travis Kelce plays the Chargers. I forgot about that. But yeah, and that's really all I have for this one. I seriously think it's going to be an ugly game.
Yeah.
The line is 40 points in this game, and I'm taking the under with confidence. We've seen both of these teams struggle. I mean, I look back to the game where the Jacksonville Jaguars played the Chiefs, and that game was 17-9.
Yeah.
I think the Saints have a very good defense as well, and their offense has been struggling. I'm seeing something similar to that.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes, but I'm not too excited.
No.
Obviously, you got to start. If you got to start Ridley, I mean, you throw him out there, but Christian Kirk's good. Evan Ingram's good. Travis, you got to start him. And Trevor Lawrence, no. I'm saying no to Trevor Lawrence this week.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
That's all we got for this one, guys. We will be back on Friday to give you the Thursday night breakdown, as well as an updated injury report, and we will start on our previews of Sunday's games. Stay tuned tonight. We will be doing another Thursday night head-to-head. And as we say every time, you have any questions, comments, just you want to tell us you're enjoying the show, we appreciate everything. Thank you once again for all the support. And go ahead, Derek.
Well, really quick before it, I wanted to say, yeah, as you mentioned, down in the description, we're going to have our socials on Instagram. We're really good about giving updates, game time decisions, things like that. We have our Twitter where we give updates, and then our TikTok where, yeah, we're doing showdowns head-to-head. So if you're into seeing, fun drafts and stuff like that, we do plenty of those. Take more reps with the first team. We'll see you next time.
Yes, sir.